Alright, alrighty. So I'm gonna be putting y'all on the pretty objective reason as to why Kid Buu and Buuhan is a pretty simple debate. I'm gonna be giving the breakdown here. Um, and yeah, that's about it. Let's get right to it. So first we'll be covering either continuity. We'll start with the manga continuity since it's the main continuity and the one that usually people debate over. Because it's obviously Toriyama's original work. For this one, it's pretty simple. Buuhan beats the fuck out of Kid Buu, and I'll explain why. First, we'll be going over the El Manga Legendario guidebook, which you see the Spanish version. Obviously, the left is the raw, and then the right is translated version. Put that shit in a Google Lens, but put it wherever you'll get the same shit. It outright says not only that Goku combined with Gotenks and Gohan would have beaten Kid Buu, but it also just says that when he returns to his Kid Buu state, his pure Buu state, he doesn't return to his as strong state. Now, this doesn't directly confirm Kid. Well, this basically just confirms Kid Buu below Buuhan, because Buuhan is the second strongest version. It's pretty obvious that he's above Buu Tanks, who's above Super Buu, who's obviously above Fat Buu. Um, so yeah, like for him to be in his not as strong form would bare minimum have to mean that he's at least not the strongest version of Buu, which would contradict that idea. You kind of see it here. I don't know if my cursor is visible, but yeah, on the fourth line, he returned to his most violent form, but not as strong. Now, to be fair, the I will like clear it up right now. The other languages of El Manga Legendario don't have this. They have the Gotenks and Gohan thing, saying that like all three of them would have beaten Kid Buu, but they do not have the not as strong portion, which is more direct in confirming Buuhan above Kid Buu. The difference is though that because each version of EML receives their own separate licensing, it's basically like each of them have the okay to translate um the notes or whatever they get from the original Japanese version however they wish. So basically, each of them are basically their own licensed guidebook. This is why the principle, based on that evidence, right, that they each have their own separate licensing, would be that I go off of is that so long as they don't contradict one another based on what they write down, they're fine. Like, if one version of EML says something that the other ones don't, I don't take the added information to be wrong or contradictory or just, infallible. I just do that unless something directly contradicts. For example, the Spanish EML says that Piccolo got 10 times stronger when he fused with Nail. The French one, no, the French one says he got 10 times stronger. The Spanish one says he got 5 times stronger. That's an example of a contradiction. But this is not a contradiction. This is just adding something in. Again, each of them have their own licensing, so they're each credible in their own right. That's why you can't really apply what's said to one um, and what's lacking in another as an issue. Moving on though, even the whole like Gotenks and Gohan thing is pretty interesting. Why? Because, well, first off, it's also confirmed by Goku in the manga. Now, I don't want to give people, actually, I'll cover the Vegeta thing in a minute, but Goku outright just says, I know, you're gonna get Gohan and Gotenks to fight with us. And he doesn't seem to imply that it's a plan that doesn't work, as he doesn't even mention any flaws with it. Um, yeah, I mean, that's probably what the EML was referencing anyway. Now, the reason this is important is mainly because of Gotenks. Like, Gotenks is what's it called? Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, going to the this slide real quick to cover this up. It's stated in the Daizenshu that an attack that someone unleashes, if somebody attacks you and they're twice as weak as you, or whatever attack they're using is twice as weak as you, it will do no damage. It says it to the right here on the barrier description for the Daizenshu that a key level that is twice as strong as another key level can completely cancel out attacks of that level. This is important because we go here and we see that Gotenks is basically toe to toe with Super Buu. Now, obviously, this would mean that when Buu absorbs Gotenks' power, he bare minimum gets twice as strong because obviously it's like adding two values of the same amount, which is basically the same as multiplying it by two. And obviously, Buuhan is even stronger than Buu-Tanks because Gohan's are stronger than Gotenks by quite a bit. Um, because he violated Super Buu. So the point is that Gotenks would be more than twice as weak as Buuhan. So if Kid Buu was even on the level of Buuhan, let alone stronger, Gotenks would be a complete non-factor. It would make no sense for Goku and the EML to state that this would actually be a good idea, because at that point he'd be as valuable as someone like fucking Piccolo, who they obviously have no indication of bringing forth, even though he was there, and he's powerful in his own right, because he's too fodder. If Gotenks can't even fucking harm him, it wouldn't make nearly any logical sense to actually bring him on, especially because he could end up being a candidate for absorption, which would just fuck them over even more. Here's another statement. This comes from the Dragon Ball Forever guidebook. This one says, "Weakened by unabsorption." Yeah, here's the kicker here. So the caption on top is saying how Boo gets weakened when he gets, when they take out the fucking pods. And obviously, images usually are tending to go aligned with the captions above or below them. And the image that they use to describe how he gets not just unabsorbed but weakened by that process is the image of Boo being taken out of his body. Now, obviously, right, given the fact that captions and images are supposed to go hand in hand and explain each other, it wouldn't make sense for them to use a panel of Boo being taken out if this specific one obviously led to what's it called? Kid Boo. Because if Kid Boo was stronger than Super Boo. Um, but they still use it. I mean, they could have used Gohan or the one of Goten and Trunks and Piccolo being taken out because those are directly stated to have weakened Boo. Those are pretty agreed upon with the whole community. But instead, they use Boo himself, which obviously, if you were to take the stance that Kid Boo's with Buuhan, this would have had to make him stronger than he was a Super Boo. But no, they say that this is a weakening. So yes, like to put it simply, right? Like the caption describes the image as Boo getting weakened by having people taken out of him, including Boo here, which means that he was getting weaker by having Boo taken out of him, which does put Kid Boo below Super Boo. So obviously him below Buuhan wouldn't even be a fucking contest. Um, oh yeah, the following are also going to be some statements about Gohan and Goku because those are important. Gohan obviously gets fodderized by Boo-Tanks, who's weaker than Buuhan, so the fact, and the whole Goku scaling is going to be important later. But here's the first statement, just outright says that Gohan is in fact stronger than Goku. Um, Now this is also a little bit weird. Uh, I'm doing this off script, so let me try to recall what the fuck I'm talking about. Oh yeah, the El Manga Legendario again says this shit where it's like, this is a French version, which again, like, it's not present in the other ones, but kind of goes back to what I said earlier about them each being their own translated and licensed guidebooks. It calls Gohan the perfect warrior, which would obviously mean that he's stronger than Goku by this point, if he's even better than him. It's just like at the time, obviously, of Gohan getting absorbed. So if Gohan at that time was above Goku, then I mean it's pretty self-explanatory. This is also the super exciting guy that just outright says that Goku feels reassured by the fact that his own child has surpassed and matured beyond him. Um, so not only is that obviously a direct statement, but there's also the fact that it also states how Goku can't even hide his shock at Gohan's power. Now this is important because it's going to lead into an argument that's actually made directly in the manga. So, well, first off, let's just go over this then, I guess. Um, Gohan, you see, when Boo turns back into Buikalo, what's it called? Goku just says Gohan can handle you now and powers down from Super Saiyan 3, clearly implying that he's not planning on fighting him and that he wants Gohan to go and finish him off. This is very out of character for the battle-hungry Goku. Now, people will say that Goku didn't trust, the kids to take over protecting the Earth, which may be why he could have done this even if he was stronger than Gohan, because he just wanted Gohan to, fulfill his duty. But the major problem was that that whole narrative was abandoned when Goku literally came back to life to help protect the Earth. At this point, Gohan basically already failed since he let Boo absorb Gotenks and got his ass beat. Um, but yeah, like, I don't think at this point Goku's running with that narrative, especially if he's already here and Gohan's already proven himself at least being capable of beating Boo at this stage, just like he made a mistake that led to Boo Tanks' creation. Like there's not really any strong evidence that Goku's still following that narrative. And given the fact that Goku, assuming he was stronger than Buikalo, was already in prime position to finish him off, and would likely not want to keep him around, especially because he's known to absorb people. For him to just power down and let it go to Gohan kind of suggests that Gohan's actually the only one physically capable of doing this. Um, oh yeah, there's this statement too. This is actually, we're gonna have to clear this up now. I don't even know the orders of the shit that I'm doing, so it's kind of why I'm a little bit all over the place. But yeah, Goku just outright says the Super Boo's stronger than both him and Vegeta, and that they would both be killed if they went outside of him to try and fight him. Now, we're gonna go into something very clear. The main and only debunk to this statement, which I think is low-key retarded, is that Goku and Vegeta are weaker because of their decreased size. Now, well, I'm gonna go over many avenues as to why this doesn't really make sense within this, the context of the story. Now, firstly, the only time this is actually directly stated is in Daizenshuu 10, which is an anime-based Daizenshuu. It doesn't have anything to do with the manga. You even see here that the context is referencing the anime with the images they use. So yes, in the anime version, I have no problem with them actually being, weaker. But when you look at the context of the manga and evidence in the manga about how ki and whatnot and everything works, it doesn't really make sense that they'd be weaker due to this. The first thing is that consistently in Dragon Ball, size alterations really don't change your power relevantly, if at all. Oolong, who outright just has magic that allows him, through shapeshifting, to transfer his size into like any amount. He just doesn't get stronger. I mean, he outright states it here, but if you remember OG Dragon Ball, he turns into a huge ass monster and he still can't challenge Goku. And instead of trying to turn into something bigger or more fierce, which logically, if it makes you stronger, should have made him at least comparable to Goku, instead of that, he just runs away like a pussy. So it should tell you that, size doesn't really equate to strength. And here with Piccolo's giant form is the same thing. It's not only stated by Piccolo himself in the manga, but up top there in the official website that he also just didn't get any stronger. His strength outright remained the same, despite the fact that again Piccolo got many times stronger. I mean, many times bigger, given just how big he got. There's also the fact that Vegeta, through learning spirit control, would have learned gigantification, where he could literally just become many times bigger. Like you see how big that guy got, and yet obviously he didn't use it against Moro in any fashion. You would think again he didn't use it against Gas or Granola or any of these people either. So it should tell you that's relatively useless. Now, he did say that he wouldn't want to use instant transmission, but obviously that's the only technique that he actually forsake or forsook from using because he still used force spirit fission, I think it's called. Yeah. The technique that rids you of absorbed powers, which is how he was able to do like anything against Moro. So he would have no problem morally using gigantification if it was strategically obviously viable. Now, people would bring up the Vegito statement. I don't give a shit about this statement, mainly because it doesn't say that his strength doesn't change due to when his size does as a special property. It says when his shape changes. So yeah, the whole argument here is that because they know that Vegito is special for not like getting weaker when his shape changes, that it would mean that like other people would obviously not be unique and they would get stronger or weaker depending on their size. But again, shape is not size. In context, they're literally referencing turning it to fucking candy, which doesn't give you vital organs or any proper way of channeling your ki. We know body is an important factor for channeling your ki. That's why Goku gets better at Kaioken the more sturdy he makes his body. And other things, right? I mean, not only that, but also the fact that you can't survive as a candy ball because you have no functional organs and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, obviously those would change your strength, but it's not stated that changing your size would, even if it doesn't change like your ki and whatnot, or like the proportions of your body and obviously the limbs and shit. Because it's not like Goku and Vegeta weren't able to live off being shrunken down. Um, this next argument is just the fact that most of the time in Dragon Ball, like you see a very clear narrative consistency that when alterations in people's ki occur, they can typically sense it. Like you see Goku saying how he got a Zenkai boost, even though he didn't even like properly fight yet. As soon as he got out of the healing chamber, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm stronger." Goku was also able to sense everything as it was happening while he was in the healing chamber, such as how Vegeta's ki got weaker and stronger, and how Frieza was also getting stronger. Um, Super Saiyan 3 Goku being able to tell that his Super Saiyan 3 ki is getting weaker. Let me see if I have more examples here. Oh yeah, Boo. They could tell every single time Boo's chi shot up, even while Goku and Vegeta, for example, were like so immersed in fighting. And Goten and Trunks, while they were just flying around, they can also tell a similar thing. Same thing here. Uh, Goku was able to sense the Zenkai boost Vegeta got, after fighting Raccoon. Krillin was able to tell how Trunks' ki suddenly shrank a good bit. Um, as soon as this was in context to when Trunks powered down from grade 3. Goku was also able to tell when Gotenks's and Boo's chi left his ability to be sensed because they were in the time chamber. Like, yeah, basically, to go back to this, if typically in Dragon Ball they clearly note when key alterations happen, it'd be very weird if they didn't notice themselves getting weaker through, the fact that they got shrunken down. It just tells you that like if it's not something that they mention narratively, it doesn't seem likely that they're actually intended to be weaker through this process and that their key does actually remain the same. There's also the fact that oh yeah, so let's go through it like this. When Goku actually shoots a ki blast and Boo says, "It stung a little here, that's all. You guys are now far, far smaller than fleas." You People kind of confuse this as how I'm say, people confuse this as Boo saying that they're weaker because of that, but I don't interpret it that way. What Boo's really accentuating is how it feels to him, which obviously, the power of a blast can change how you feel something, but also the size of it. Normally, no matter how weak a ki blast is, a ki blast fired at Boo would take up a good portion of his body. He'd feel it around. But Boo only feels a tiny fraction, a tiny prick in his head, because of Goku's reduced size. So it makes sense that he'd be referring to the size of Goku's blast being low, to the point where he only feels it in a small, insignificant portion of his head, rather than necessarily talking about the power of said blast. I get where people make the distinction, but again, like you would think if typically ki blasts are felt all around your body, but because Goku's so small, Boo only feels it in a very, very tiny portion of his body, it would be something to note in of its own right. That's why I don't really interpret the statement on the far right here to mean what people try to always, tell you it means. Not to mention that in the context of this own statement, you see how Goku is like surprised after Goku and Vegeta both are surprised. This should alone tell you that they weren't even like let's interpret what Boo said and the overall fact that they did get weaker because of the reduced size, right? Let's just assume that was true. You see how after the blast doesn't do shit, Goku and Vegeta both are surprised. You see like Goku with the dot 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 there, and Vegeta's like, oh shit, didn't have any effect. Yeah, so they didn't expect to get weaker themselves. This would just mean that even if they did get weaker, they themselves didn't know it, judging by their own reactions. And it wouldn't be the first time. I mean, they didn't notice when they got weaker um, during the Moro arc. And granted, that might seem like it's going against what I was saying earlier, but not really, because what I'm saying earlier is more so a tendency in Dragon Ball. It's not a guarantee that Goku and Vegeta are going to notice a power fluctuation. It's just a tendency that I would wager, given the fact that it happens more often than not throughout the series. But regardless, like, that's just kind of why no matter which option you choose, the argument's fucked. Because even if you think they did get weaker, it's just that they didn't notice it anyway. So when Goku made the statement prior to this whole thing happening, prior to him trying to like blast his way out of Boo's body, he was not accounting for any nerf due to size. Not to mention that Boo, when he literally detaches himself and forms a duplicate of himself that's around the same size as Goku and Vegeta, is enough to take them both on inside of his body. You literally see them very furious at having to fight without fusion, and Boo's confident in taking them both on. Boo believes he's winning, and these guys either believe they're gonna lose or definitely think it's gonna be a tough ass fight because they don't have fusion to rely on anymore. And this is against a proportionally nerfed Boo, assuming, right, that the size nerfs you in general. And Boo can't even rely, or at least the way we see him fight, he's detaching himself from the rest of his body anyway. So this is just a clone that's made with ki that's proportionally shrunken down um in terms of size to around their level because obviously he's around their size. So it's really to show that like even if you think this whole thing nerfs you, right? When Boo's basically giving himself the same nerf by channeling himself into a duplicate that's around their size, he's still a trouble for them. Also, and this kind of debunks another thing, people will mention how Goku said, if we go out like this, which they think is Goku mentioning their size. I mean, I just interpret that as them mentioning Patara fusion. Because the whole context of, you know, what they mentioned directly in Boo's body is how they're now nerfed because of the Patara. In fact, let me see if it's. Yeah, I mean, this guy literally says in the same fucking page, you just had to break the Patara, and the page that I showed you over here also mentions the same thing. The context about them being nerfed like this is them being separated and no longer fused. Has nothing to do with size. So, like, I think the counters to the whole Goku I mean, below Super Boost statement that I showed you are pretty dumb. There's also the fact that Goku seemed to expect that they would be returned back to normal size. Um, which would be weird anyway. Like you would think if Vegito expected the fact that they could be shrunken down and thus weakened, that he wouldn't take the risk of going inside Boo's body. Granted, he was obviously much stronger than Boo, but the chances, like I don't know how he would guarantee the fact that he would remain strong enough to beat Boo if he had that shrunken down nerf. Like that just it doesn't really make sense for for Vegito to do this, assuming that it was kind of law of logic about Ki and Dragon Ball that if you shrink yourself down, you're just gonna get proportionally weaker in terms of your Ki output and your power level. But yeah, like Goku seems pretty. I mean, obviously, yes, he's like, yes, they're back to normal. This doesn't really imply it's something he didn't know. Like, you don't see any question marks or any like, how you say, like, exclamation marks of surprise is initially once they like return back to normal size. If anything, it just seems that Goku's happy that his plan worked. If anything, this next argument that I'm going to bring forth is pretty simple. Butanks, both by his own words and in the Daizenshuu, believes that he's the strongest Majin ever, and that he believes he's basically the strongest form that he's ever had. Now, Buu does remember himself as Fat Buu. We see this when he talks to Goku and says that I fought you and you transformed, which is obviously something that he only fought Goku at this point as Fat Buu. And Piccolo even mentions how Buu is somehow actually able to retain memories, which is why Super Buu still remembers the good things that Hercule did to him, Mr. Satan did to him, which is why he spares him and Videl. Those panels are obviously in the bottom corner there. Boo remembers beating Gotenks up when he meets him again as Super Boo. Obviously, if you recall, Gotenks did go and try and fight Fat Boo, which didn't end too well, but he would have no other way of remembering Gotenks besides that interaction as Fat Boo. Not to mention the fact, like, real quick, just like how Kid Boo is mentally very different, Super Boo is also very mentally different from Fat Boo, whereas Fat Boo is pure and, for the most part, innocent and just does bad things because people tell him to the point where he was willing to stop all of that just because Mr. Satan told him otherwise. We have Super Boo, who's literally just a vicious monster, who's willing to kill everyone besides Mr. Satan, and was actually willing to kill Videl eventually, which he did end up doing, just because of how evil he was. So the fact that he still remembers all this shit. Now, the whole I won't be me anymore thing is pretty taken to a high level, I would say. I definitely think this is more so just referring to the fact that Kid Buu is mentally different, but not too dissimilar from, again, the mental processing between Fat Buu and Super Buu. Like, yes, Fat Buu and Super Buu think so drastically different that they're basically like two different people. They're not two different entities, and that's going to be important later, but they are mentally like two different people. But to me, all that it really seems to be is akin to hitting your head and becoming like a whole different person. Maybe you get amnesia, or maybe you get dementia, or some shit like that. Um, like obviously it's possible for the human mind to go undergo drastic alterations to the point where someone does end up acting very different from the norm, for whatever reason, while still being, functionally and spiritually the same person. Maybe not functionally, but you know what I mean. If you conk your head and forget everything about you and end up adopting a new personality because you don't have access to the same memories and schema, that doesn't mean that you're literally a different person. It's only really true in the figurative sense. Now, I don't know why the fuck this slide is all the way over here, but remember when I showed you how Goku was stated to be shocked at Gohan's hidden power? Well, in the middle here, both by the raw translation, I mean the Viz translation, and Herm's, which is, the text on the bottom, Goku's also just clearly surprised. He has no idea that Gohan had that much hidden power in him. Now, why is this important? Well, to the left and the right, in both the Cell and Buu arc, Goku has clear confidence in the fact that Gohan has more latent power than all of them, including himself, and he was obviously proven right at the end of that arc. So for the fact of Goku, and that's why he still says it at Buu. So the fact that Goku was shocked that Gohan had that much power wouldn't really make sense if Gohan's potential unlocked didn't make him stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Because how does he have more latent power than Goku, get said latent power unlocked, but end up weaker than Goku, or even on the same fucking level as Goku? No, you'd have to be stronger than Goku. So that's why this whole argument doesn't really make too much sense when just you look at the story. Like it's very, very obvious that the narrative implied that they were intending for Gohan to be stronger than Goku because, and then the fact that it should just be like very trivial. If Gohan does have more latent power than Goku, which if he obviously does as a hybrid Saiyan, and we see time and time again, when he gets said latent power unlocked, no way is he going to be a below Goku still. The only reason he ends up below Goku later on, even though he still ends up catching up because fucking all that potential, is because he slacks off and Goku continues to break his limits. But at the time of Buu, it's very clear that that blatant potential put him above Goku. Now, the following is some like rather iffy arguments. Most people will call back to the idea that Gohan was stated to be the strongest unfused warrior. The exact verbiage of being the strongest unfused warrior is never stated, but he is called the mightiest warrior in reference to his ultimate state in the Daizenshuu. I believe this is the second one here. This is Herm's translation. Um, Now this obviously might not necessarily include Goku because he was dead at this point, hence they only refer to like Gotenks here, but it could be an argument. Though a personal favorite of mine, even though it's again rather unorthodox, is the one in the middle where you tend to see that Boo's tentacle on his head tentacle, gets longer the stronger he gets. Obviously, Kid Boo's stronger than Fat Boo, which is why it's longer. I'm arguing for Super Boo above Pure Boo, and we notice that it's actually longer. South Kaioshin Boo is actually stronger than Super Boo, and his end tentacle is also longer. That's why the panel on the right over here is sent. The panel on the right was when Super Boo was turning into Buff Boo, and you see that Goku says that his chi is actually getting bigger, so he is stronger. And then Gotenks Boo is also longer than Super Boo, and you notice that, he's obviously stronger than Super Boo. And then Buuhan is stronger than Boo Tanks, and he has a longer one. And it doesn't change when he absorbs Vegeta. So, like, you do notice, right? The only, really, from the people I've talked to, the only other thing this could be ranking or could be, like, altering itself based off that makes any sort of sense consistently is IQ. Only even that doesn't make as much sense as power because, well, Kid Buu isn't really portrayed to be smarter than Fat Buu. Wait, do I have this here? Yeah, I'm gonna get into that in a second. Um, I'll get into that in a second. Super Buu also isn't even like, I won't really say that. I won't say that to be fair. South Kaioshin Buu isn't really portrayed to be smarter than Super Buu, especially because he kind of just goes like crazy without making proper sound. I mean, proper like words. He just makes sounds. And given the fact that he has no one in him at this point, it wouldn't really make sense that he's smarter. Um, yeah. I mean that's let's just go to the Kid Buu thing. It's stated here that he does get the personality and other traits. In fact, it's stated that he gets a personality and intellect of other people, which is why his intellect gets enhanced. You see, Kid Buu is the baseline. And obviously, he can't, even though he's still smart in his own right, as in he's able to copy techniques and whatnot, he's only getting enhanced via this statement, for example, from Dragon Ball Forever. He's only getting enhanced when he absorbs, the Kais and whatnot. I mean, granted, like Fat Buu isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but he can still do not only the same technique mimicry, which I think I have here, so I'll show in a second, but he can actually speak and make proper deductive reasoning. Let me see if I have it here, actually. Oh my gosh. I have no fucking idea why I have this here. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Let me see if I can recall. I really don't know why I have this here, to be honest. I will, I will call back to this. Wait, let me see if I can figure that out. I mean, besides the fact that he absorbed the two Kais, which is like, I think it. Oh yeah, I remember this point. I remember this point. My bad, guys. The point is that South Supreme Kai is the only one that's stated and implied narratively. Not the South Supreme Kai. The Grand Supreme Kai is the only one that's implied to have weakened him. So Buff Boo is also stronger than Kid Buu in the manga. That's going to be important because of something in a second. Not only could you use the tentacle ship, but you could also use something which I'm gonna mention in a real quick sec here. Uh, but yeah, like you see how South Supreme. I mean, when they never mention any like strength reduction for South Supreme Kai, they only mention it for Grand Supreme Kai, and they only mention it for him because he was specifically very pure-hearted. They even mention this only in the Daizenshuu. Like the fact that they obs ob yeah, what's the right word? Obfuscate, maybe? The fact that they just don't mention the South Supreme Kai um getting weaker, but making him weaker, but they clearly mention it for the Grand Supreme Kai just doesn't really make much sense if the same applies to the the South Supreme Kai, man, I cannot fucking speak. In fact, same thing here with the manga Legendario. And this makes sense because he's also the only one that's said to have a pure heart, which is also why Boo got weakened by the Grand Supreme Kai in the first place because he had a pure heart. So South Supreme Kai lacks that. They don't note that for him. Um, then yeah, he wouldn't have anything that allow him to reduce Boo's power in the same way that the Grand Supreme Kai did. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Another reason why I think Buff Boo is weaker than even Boo Tanks is because in the panel I showed you earlier, Goku said, quote unquote, isn't his chi getting bigger? Now, although that does imply that he's obviously getting stronger, the fact that Goku couldn't like instantly tell should tell you that it's not a huge key spike up. Since, like with the examples I showed you earlier, when someone's key drastically changes in Dragon Ball, you can tell, even if you're not directly focusing. Like with the Goku Majin Vegeta fight, they could tell when Boo's key spiked up a lot, or when Krillin noticed Trunks' key shrinking by a lot, etc., etc. So it's like the fact that Vegeta had to be told by Goku, like, oh shit, I think this guy's key's getting bigger, and Goku was even a bit unsure, should tell you that like the increase, although it wasn't drastic. Like it wasn't a huge boost in power. Yet we know that Bootanks is a huge boost in power. Because absorbing Gotenks made him Gohan fodder to fodderizing Gohan. Now, moving on, again, like Kid Buu, even though he still has some good like intuitive understanding of fighting and techniques, it still says that he just doesn't have any actual thoughts other than destruction. Whereas you see here, first off, Fat Buu is actually able to replicate both the Kamehameha and Vegeta's technique. Um, Goku says that he uses Vegeta's technique in the first panel that I show. and then the next two are obviously him using the Kamehameha. And Goku in the last one there even just outright calls him smart, and how he can learn his enemy's moves very fast. And before I go into this, I'll also mention how Boo literally killed Babidi by first restraining his throat so that he couldn't cast a spell that would turn him back into a ball, which is the one thing that Babidi actually had leverage over Boo. So the fact that he was actually able to off guard Babidi and specifically target him there with that knowledge in mind to prevent that should show that he's got more than this like base instinct level of understanding and can actually make logical reasoning. No shot has Kid Buu demonstrated any form of logical reasoning or speech or anything. Him learning people's techniques is basically just like an animal's instinct, which again, Fat Buu also possesses. So if Fat Buu retains that, and we have no reason to assume that he would have lost that anyway, but we see that he still retained that. And amongst that, he also gains the ability to make logical deductions and obviously speak and whatnot. Yeah, saying that Kid Boo's smarter than Fat Boo makes no fucking sense. This is just confirmation that Goku's below Bootanks and Buuhan because he needed fusion. I'm not gonna really linger on this because I think it's something that we can all fucking agree on that Goku was weaker than Bootanks and Buuhan, hence he needed fusion so badly. Um, but now we're gonna tie this into Kid Buu because Goku scales to Kid Buu. The following are very like clearly illustrated panels of the two going toe to toe. You see that Goku and Buu both go back and forth relativity. They're able to clash with each other. They will exchange blows, take around the same amount of damage, and just keep up with each other. Let me see. I think there's more panels of this here as well. And mind you, the first two panels are literally Vegeta noting how he's the only one that can actually properly fight Buu. Um, and again, we just continue to see them actually go back and forth. Goku beats him up. Buu then beats him up, and then like again back and forth it's pretty obvious that they're you know relative basically on par. And then super exciting guide, even though they don't explicitly state that, they note Boo's regeneration as the deciding factor that caused Goku to have so much trouble with Boo, and that required him to need to charge up his maximum amount of energy for like a full power attack. Thus, it wasn't really Boo's power being overwhelming, it's just the fact that Goku couldn't really do lethal damage to him because, he was wasting his energy trying to attack someone who basically has immortality, which is why he needed to actually charge up an incredibly powerful one that could like literally exterminate every cell in Boo's body. Obviously, Boo didn't need to do the same thing because Goku's a Saiyan. You can kill him much easier than you can kill Boo. Again, super exciting guide also just says how he fought on par with Majin Buu. So the fight that we see on screen, just like that, right? It's very clear that's an equal fight. And here they just outright state it in the super exciting guide. Um, oh yeah, this is to address the whole idea of like Kid Buu holding back. Well, first off, Kid Buu typically like just beats the fuck out of people that are much weaker than him. So if you wanted to argue that Kid Buu's full power is like much above Goku, it just wouldn't be consistent with his character to still go toe to toe with him. Because both against Vegeta and against Fat Buu, he just beats the fuck out of them. I mean, they can maybe keep up a little bit, but generally the fight is very one-sided, so it just doesn't make sense given what we know about Buu's personality within the series. And it's not to say like he's not holding back against anyone at all, but it's just the fact that like if he was holding back against Goku, um, or at least if he had power to spare against Goku, he would more likely just beat the fuck out of him, because that's what he tends to do, even against Mr. Satan. The only reason, as I show in these panels, um, is just because like even in the last panel, the other guy just states that him having had Fat Boo in him was the only reason why he was actually struggling against Mr. Satan. Then you see him one shot him. Now, again, like, granted, I guess this kind of proves he's holding back because obviously he would normally one shot someone of Mr. Satan's level, but even if he does hold back, Boo would still beat the fuck out of you rather than going like toe to toe with you. So it shows that he didn't actually have power to spare to just completely overpower Goku, which is in his tendency to do against people, because he actually had to have a close fight with him. Um, In the super exciting guide here on the left, it's just stated that he goes full power against those he doesn't like, and it brings up destroying the Earth as a result. Now, granted, you can argue that he didn't go full power against Vegeta because he didn't one-shot him in base, and when Vegeta was in base. But this could just mean then that the statement would be talking about Goku, because obviously the panel it references is him attacking both of them, and it doesn't specifically mention whether or not they're talking about Goku Vegeta there. So if we know it can't be talking about Vegeta because Goku, I mean, Buu doesn't go full power against Vegeta when they fight, then we could just apply it to Goku rather than making a contradiction, confusing things. And that would again just be perfectly consistent. Dragon Ball Forever also just outright states that they're equal in strength. Um, that's also just very direct. Like, without any added assumptions or bullshit to complicate and put more holes in an argument, we just see that they're stated to be equal in terms of power. Like you can't get more direct than that. Um, well, yeah, this is like to debunk that whole bullshit where people think that just because Boo was kind of like stalling a bit low key, that he wasn't going all out, or he wasn't really stalling, but he wasn't like immediately rushing in, bum rushing, while Vegeta and Goku were discussing. You can like hide lethal intent, or like you can stall a fight even and still be going all out. Gohan is a very clear example. You see on the left, how Gohan didn't want to finish off Cell, yet towards the right, multiple statements confirm that he was going all out. From the website, which is the little one here that has a picture of Gohan and Cell facing off each other, is from Viz. The one at the bottom that said that Gohan went all out with a four on top is from the Daisenshu. And then the furthest one on the right is from El Manga Legendario, and the one in the middle is from the official website, just for the sources, in case you're curious. But yeah, despite stalling against Cell, he went all out. And obviously, it does make sense, right? Because, I mean, he could have punched a hole in Cell's body. It wouldn't exactly kill him unless he used something like a Kamehameha, because Cell also has regen. But this is just, again, to show that, like, people say that stalling doesn't equal going all out, as if these are like contradicting terms. No, you can stall a fight and still not go all out. I mean, still be going all out. For instance, what Boo was doing was dancing while they were fucking, talking. That doesn't mean that while he then goes to fight Goku, he's holding back. That just means that he's not intending to fight Goku 24/7 and takes the time to emote on him. Like, I don't know why people think. That's like saying, like, if you want to fucking emote on someone in, like, Fortnite, that automatically means that you're not actually trying against them when you go and fight them. I mean, it could be the case, but not necessarily, right? A lot of times when I emote on people, I'm still actually trying to fucking beat them. But I take the time to emote when I know I have the time to emote. I'm probably not gonna get shot out of fucking nowhere. So, like, I don't know why people assume that, like, stalling a fight, depending on the context, just always has to be, I mean, has to mean that you're not going all out. And it would just deny everything else. It just doesn't really make sense. I'm not going to linger on this too much. First off, Super Saiyan 2 Goku and Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta, Majin Vegeta, are equals. Pretty fucking obvious. I'm not really like, y'all can just pause and look over this. Super exciting guide and the Daizenshu here. The Daizenshu's on the left. Um, SEG's on the right. That's the manga, and then the one here that says the Prince of Destruction. That's also Daizenshu. El Manga Legendario, you see the Spanish, and then you see the translated one, and then you just see manga panels on the bottom confirming the same thing. Um, this is Vegeta being weaker than Fat Buu. I'm also not going to really linger on this because we just see his beatdown pretty easily. Um, and then here's the kicker, right? So we know that Goku is obviously sub Fat Buu in Super Saiyan 2, pretty obviously. SS3 is only 4 times stronger than Super Saiyan 2, but what do we know? First panel, going from, left to right here, we have Piccolo confirming that Super Buu is in every way stronger than the Fat Buu. You see the little panel after Trunks asks, "Is that Buu?" And then Goten says he did change in reference to Fat Buu. Piccolo responds that he gets even more powerful. I mean, he's already more powerful in every single way. So yes, what happens is that from there, they go into the time chamber, and Piccolo actually believes that in base form, Gotenks can beat Super Buu. And you see the panel right after that is Trunks saying that they can even defeat Buu with regular fusion. So both Trunks, Goten, and Piccolo, they all believe the same shit. Now, the fourth panel to the right is to confirm that Piccolo at this time didn't even know that he could turn Super Saiyan during the fusion. This was I don't know why he thought that, but yeah, all the characters did think that. Like they didn't know that you could go like Super Saiyan after you fused. They thought that like the form you fused in was the form you're stuck in. But that's a show that when Piccolo says in the second panel, this may succeed, he's not talking about Gotenks going SSJ right after. He's talking about base fucking Gotenks, just like Trunks talks about in the panel, the third panel, how he can beat them with regular fusion, which is why they start off in regular fusion anyway. Now obviously as we know, Boo just beats the fuck out of base Gotenks and ends up being like on par with Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. So we know that Super Saiyan 3 is 400 times base, based off Super Exciting Guide, what's shown here on the left. So if Super Boo was suppressing himself by 400 times, which is why Piccolo says, they might be able to beat base Gotenks, but then Super Boo ends up being on par with Super Saiyan 3. Yet that same suppressed version of Boo, at the time, when they were still sensing him outside of the time chamber, was still stronger than Fat Boo. That means that Super Boo is over 400 times stronger than Super Saiyan 2 Goku and Vegeta. Yes, the numbers are pretty fucking big, but that's just how the in-story evidence and using the data book statements in conjunction with that would demonstrate. And that, again, just remains perfectly fine given what we know about Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Super Buu and Bootanks and Buuhan. Um, oh yeah, this is also to confirm that, actually, is this the point? This does confirm that SS3 Gotenks wasn't actually stronger than Buu. Because Buu outright just says that he stalled because he sensed Gohan, which he sensed Gohan for the first time when Gohan initially powered up in Ultimate, before he was done his ritual. He sensed that while he was fighting like SSJ3 Gotenks initially, like right when they broke out of the time chamber. So I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to do with this. Oh, now I know. Um, this is, I'm pretty sure, to show that it wouldn't have made sense for. What the fuck is this for? Wait, let me see if it's. Wait. Oh. Okay. This is to demonstrate that Boo. Okay, so we all know how Boo basically baited Gotenks into going Super Saiyan 3. That's shown here. He baited Gotenks to going Super Saiyan 3 to obviously absorb him. He even explains it in the panel on the right. Um, the fact that he didn't do that to Goku should tell you that he didn't want to absorb, what's his name? Goku. Now, here's a few things to clear up. First up, he didn't know about the Super Saiyan 3 time limit at this point. He would have no way of knowing that because no one, including those inside of his body, like Piccolo, knew about Super Saiyan 3's time limit. In fact, even Goku didn't know about that. He was actually surprised when he couldn't use. Let me see. Do I have that here? No, I don't. He was actually surprised when he ran out of energy in Super Saiyan 3, and he was like, "Oh shit! It must be because I have an alive body." But because he didn't use it as an alive person at that point, for like an extended period of time. He didn't know that. So Boo would have no reason to assume that there's actually a time limit or any severe time limit whatsoever on his body, um, compared to like another form like Ultimate or some shit like that. He'd have no reason to have believed that at this time. He also wouldn't deny trying to absorb a more powerful person like Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who, by the way, he went Super Saiyan 3 in front of him. And Goku was clearly going to go full, I mean, all out here because you see how fucking pissed he is that he has to fight Buu tanks. He obviously isn't going to be suppressed here, meaning that Buu, someone who can sense ki, was able to sense Goku's full power in Super Saiyan 3, and yet, yeah, he goes for Gohan instead. This should also be an indicator that Ultimate Gohan is stronger than SS3 Goku. The thing is, right, like, even though Goku was, like, more in front of him, the same thing was the case with Gotenks. Gotenks was in, like, Gohan's field of view, yet he still went for Gotenks instead. So it's not like Buu wouldn't have went for Goku because he was worried that Gohan might have intervened or some shit. Because he clearly didn't care about that in regards to Gotenks and Piccolo, too. Not to mention both him and Piccolo. Like, you know, it's like he clearly doesn't give a fuck. Cause anyway, he could really off guard Gohan too with this little like splooge or whatever the fuck if he wanted to. Just because Boo taking people like Gotenks and Gohan off guard, like they barely have time to react before they're absorbed. So like Boo really wouldn't have any reason. He would have no reason to not want to absorb Goku here had Goku been stronger. The simple explanation is that Goku's weaker and that what's it called? Because Boo does want to be the strongest. The only reason he wanted to absorb Gotenks instead of Gohan was because he had an unfinished business basically with Gohan, right? Because Gohan beat the fuck out of him the chapter before. He doesn't have that with Gohan anymore because he already beat his ass as Bootanks. So there would be nothing like going against Boo's want to just get the higher power level if there's not really anyone he has a feud with. I mean, he doesn't really have a feud with Goku, uh, of any note. It's not like he even tries to fight Goku when he becomes Buuhan. Instead, he gives Goku the chance, right? He didn't give Gohan that chance because he had a feud with Gohan. He didn't say, "Yo, Gohan, try and find someone to fuse with," even though he knew that Tien and like Dende and them were there. It's like in the same situation, even before Vegeta came on the scene, Buuhan still asked Goku, like, "Go find someone to fuse," just because he knew that it was already like a losing battle. So the whole point basically is that like the context is different. It's not like Boo had like unfinished business with Goku, which is why he didn't absorb Gohan. He absorbed Gotenks because he had unfinished business with Gohan. Just like to show that there really isn't anything stopping him from just absorbing the strongest person. Uh, I have I really don't know why I have this here. I can lie to you. Let me see if maybe. Okay, okay. Yeah, this is just proving that Bootanks is astronomically faster than Kid Buu. Now, you see that everyone is very, like, they really don't seem to care about Kid Buu now that they're in the Kaioshin realm, and they're actually surprised when Kid Buu arrives there. Um, this is really to say that they don't expect Kid Buu to be capable of arriving in the Kaioshin realm. Yet, Elder Kai does state that Bootanks will be able to arrive there. He says Buu will make his way here too eventually. So he knows that Bootanks is fast enough, who again is weaker than Buuhan. He knows that Bootanks is fast enough to make his way to what's it called? To make his way to the Kaioshin realm, but he doesn't have those thoughts for Kid Buu. No one does. In fact, they're all shocked when he actually gets there, and they kind of just say like, "Oh yeah, we can stall however long we want." Like Goku outright just says he can't come here, and no one disagrees with him. And they're all like planning to just take however much time they need to think of a plan because all he's really gonna do is just ravage other planets. Now, the following from here, even though I already did some of this, it's just gonna rebunk common statements people use to like debunk the stance of Kid Buu and Buuhan. First off, anime is not fucking canon. Here's are just statements from Toriyama in interviews where they clearly just separate anime. The top one, even though it's talking about Dr. Slump, we still have reason to believe that he would think of the same as Dragon Ball because he never really states anything that implies that Dragon Ball is different. He just says that he doesn't consider the anime and manga different. I mean, the same thing. He just considers them different. The one with Koyama on the bottom right here, I mean the bottom left. There are definitely parts where we catch up with the original work, and there is no way we could get ahead of it. We would even make so naturally original material went in. So like basically this is just to show that the Dragon Ball anime's intention is just to be the Dragon Ball manga or to adapt the original comic with extra shit. So it's clearly not really meant to be in the same like timeline and all that shit. Toriyama also just outright says anime has its own way of doing things, so I think it's better to leave it to the professionals. Manga and anime are separate things. Um, so that's why he doesn't like that was also in context of the question, which is do you put in any request to the anime? Like is basically to show that Toriyama doesn't actually like get too involved with the anime because he just doesn't give a fuck. They're separate. So even though he does say they should be connected somehow or people should get that feeling, that's not really the same as saying they're canon. Even though you can have an adaptation that's not canon and does things differently, obviously the point is to generally get the same feeling. And even though Dragon Ball Z does, like the anime is clearly its own thing, it still very closely follows the story for the most part, right? Dragon Ball Super started doing things kind of different, but Dragon Ball Z for the most part, besides filler and some other shit, is pretty close. So that's kind of the pull point here. Even though it's close, it's not the same thing. So you can't use any anime statements of Kid Buu being the strongest and apply them to the manga. Because again, it's just a completely different continuity with completely different intentionality and writing behind it. Toriyama writes the manga. Other people are writing the anime. Um, let me see here. Yeah, the statement on the left is just him mentioning how the anime put original shit there because they gotta extend it for the sake of runtime, and the right is just Toriyama saying how he just doesn't have any fucking like involvement with the anime. This is in El Manga Legendario, I believe. It's an interview they did with him. Um, this next one is about Gohan. So basically, we all know the scan of Goku saying that Gohan's energy for the Spirit Bomb, or we might not all know, but Goku said that Gohan's energy for the Spirit Bomb wasn't enough. So people take that to say that Gohan is just weaker than Kid Buu. However, it's clearly explained and outlined by King Kai here in every translation that you get here that the Genki Dama only takes a small bit of energy. It's just the general principle behind the technique. And this is even stated multiple times when they use the Genki Dama that he's just going to get like a little bit of their energy. Um, yeah. Now we know that Goku, my bad. Goku clearly, despite it being life or death against Frieza, so he has no reason to take like only a little bit. Despite it being life and death, he only gets a little bit of energy. How do we know this? Because in Super, Namek's energy is enough to push back, just a planet's fucking energy is enough to push back Super Saiyan God Vegeta, who's obviously like a million fucking tiers stronger and more durable than Namek Frieza, who at this point wasn't even full power. Um, yeah, obviously, even though he was gravely injured, he was still, for the most part, fine, right? So it's like, you're telling me that the same planet Namek's energy that can push back Vegeta in like a million times more durable isn't even able to come close to killing Frieza. Because granted, it did damage, but he definitely wasn't fucking dead. Um, yeah, like Krillin also outright states that he's gathering chi not just from planet Namek, but from other planets too. And it's even stated here too many times. For example, well, those are statements in the manga. How Goku says other neighboring planets, and Krillin says that too. Dragon Ball Forever, here in the right, says that he's getting chi of the entire universe, which might not necessarily be like every single planet or every single person, but at the very least describes it as being a lot more than just planet Namek. He's clearly taking more than just Namek's energy. Yeah, it wasn't enough to kill Frieza. This would only make sense with
the scaling of just how much energy Namek has if Goku only took a little bit of the planet's energy, which doesn't make logical sense for him to do, given the fact, I mean, if he could have taken more, that is to say, because it was a life or death battle, right? And like honestly, given how much energy Namek has, he didn't even have to completely deplete it. Again, this is energy that can push back Super Saiyan God Vegeta. He could take not even 10% and he would still eviscerate Frieza. Because in the end of the day, all of the people on Earth had enough energy to fucking eviscerate Kid Buu. Like it's very who's obviously again like way more fucking durable than Frieza. And Frieza doesn't even have regen, so he doesn't even need to eviscerate every single atom of Frieza's body to kill him. Granted, Frieza has some crazy fucking endurance, but you know, in the end of the day, as long as you turn him into mostly nothing, you could just finish him off from there. Now, Goku, like, they do say how you can, like, push how much energy you can get with a Spirit Bomb. Here are a couple statements of that. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a cap. For example, let's say the cap of how much energy you can take from someone is 10%. I'm not saying that is the cap, I'm just giving a random number. Now, you can choose to take 2%, or you can push it to 5%. Just because you can push it up doesn't mean that you'll be able to push it up past 10%. You know what I mean? Um, Another thing here is the fact that they might try to mention how, um, for example, you see in the middle here how Supreme Kai says that he spent all of his power, so he can't even teleport, as an indication that they did take most of their energy. The problem is that not only does Supreme Kai teleport like right fucking after when Buu is killed, we see that Piccolo, who also tried to give as much energy as possible, which you see in the earlier panel here, um, he was actually able to react to and kick down Frieza. So he still clearly had a good bit of energy left in him. Um, Not to mention that Dende, who also, gave all his energy, right, or as much as he could, not only says that he could restore Goku's energy, but he actually does restore all of their fucking energy. He restores Vegeta's and Goku's at the end of the arc. So, this, if anything, kind of just suggests that the Kai Kai technique does take a severe toll on them, or at least a noticeable toll on your energy, right? So that even if you only take a little bit of energy, it can prevent you from using the Kai Kai. Because Dende's healing, which also takes energy, he was still able to use it quite a bit, despite having his energy used for the Spirit Bomb as well. Um, and more evidence of this is the fact that even though Kibito is urgently trying to get to Supreme Kai, and they're all moving around very quickly because they have to go places to, organize against Majin Buu, they never use Kai Kai. He never does until they actually just straight up have to go to Supreme Kai place or the Supreme Kai realm. When they're flying around Earth, they don't choose to do so, despite the fact that time is of the essence due to Boo's arrival. So it does suggest that the Kai Kai technique isn't actually as simple or non energy straining as one might assume. Um, I don't know what this is for, to be honest. Uh, oh yeah, 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 yeah. We know that Ultimate is also a transformation. I mean, it's just clarified in Super. It's not like it's something that he always kept. Um, it is a state that he has to access to bring out all of his potential. And we do know that Gohan was knocked out. That's the purpose of the panel to the left. And typically in Dragon Ball, when you get knocked out, like in the panel on the right, you will detransform. Um, Being out cold or dead is obviously like how you detransform. Um, and then yeah, so like we see Gohan here giving energy. The problem is that we have no reason to believe that he retransformed into Ultimate. Now, not only do we see that Gohan doesn't seem to be like severely strained in terms of like tiredness, like you see them all like saying like awesome and shit, despite the fact that they've given their energy at this point, because it's during the time where the humans begin to give their energy, which is after they did. But um, people will mention like, oh well, why would Gohan not go ultimate? Granted, there's a logical inconsistency there, which I get, but in this case, the context itself just doesn't seem to be like that focused on narratively. Not only because the narrative focus was just for the humans to give their energy instead of like focusing on the Z fighters because it was all the humans, but you can even see with examples, Goten and Trunks don't go Super Saiyan or even fuse, despite the fact that it would have increased their chi exponentially, and obviously would have been very logical too. Nor does Gohan suggest this to them, or Piccolo. Both of them characterized as being very smart and obviously would do typically the most logical thing. But in this specific instance, they don't, which should tell you that we shouldn't, like, if we don't expect it of Goten and Trunks, or even Gohan in this specific scenario, we also shouldn't expect Gohan to go ultimate, even if it is the most logically consistent thing to help with the Spirit Bomb. So, for all we know, it's just as, if not more likely, given the fact that not even Goten and Trunks are transformed, as I said, it's, if anything, more likely that Gohan's just in base here. Um, Again, the fact that they don't even seem to be tired due to the panel on the right that I sent should suggest that they didn't have a significant portion of energy taken. In fact, for comparison, this is what Gohan looks like when most of his energy is taken. Um, we also see, by the way, that like people try to use the whole like eye thing. Gohan's eyes are drawn different in Ultimate um, than they were in Base, but it clearly just seems to be the case that after Gohan goes Ultimate the first time, Toriyama just decides to draw his eyes like that constantly, rather than it being like only an Ultimate exclusive thing. Now, unless you think that he just stayed in Ultimate and the panel to the left, which is like when they're all reminiscing and like not reminiscing, but they're all like reuniting after Boo. He has no reason to stay in Ultimate, which again is a transformation. Um, then you see it again in like the middle panel after like they're all like again like believing it to be over. And then even 10 years later, like do you think 10 years fucking later when Gohan's just stacking books, he's still in Ultimate? Because we see the same like eyeliner, not the eyeliner, but his eyes are drawn in the same way as it is normally in Ultimate, which is obviously different than how adult Gohan was drawn initially in the Buu arc prior to achieving Ultimate. But it just suggests that Toriyama wasn't making the whole like eye thing specifically an Ultimate thing. It just seems to be like since going Ultimate, his eyes now look like this. Um, Let me see. Oh yeah, this is also to show that wait. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Vegeta, here's another thing. Here's another argument for Gohan. You can definitely just argue that he's straight up nerfed, due to the fact that he just got resurrected, along with everyone else. So you see, when Vegeta gets brought back to life, even though his injuries are gone, like you clearly see that his injuries are gone. The first panel with the halo, he's beaten the fuck up because he fought Boo earlier, and the second panel when it disappears because he's resurrected, all of that's healed. However, the third panel, when Vegeta, now revived, wants to go fight Boo, Goku says you're still weak from before. The Herms translation, the more like accurate one, typically, because Herms is more well respected in that event, um, it says you've just been restored to life. Your key still isn't full. And the Daizenshuu says the same thing, in fact. Even though his key wasn't fully recovered, Vegeta still tries to stall Boo. This does suggest, obviously, it does obviously suggest that, what's it called? He didn't get fully restored. Now, obviously, the problem with this. Alright, it says no fucking pause button. Um, let's just continue. I don't know why the fuck OBS has no pause button, but anyways, the point is that Vegeta couldn't, he wasn't automatically restored to full power because of the fact that he just got returned to life. Given that, right, the same can be applied for Gohan. Do I have more examples? Yeah. Um, Now people have this really weird way of looking at it that because Vegeta already had a body that was injured, that's why he's like, not fully restored. but because Gohan had to get like his whole body back and shit because he was eviscerated by Boo's attack, that he was fully restored. That's just never really stated. If anything, Goku doesn't really index the fact that Vegeta's nerfed to his injuries that he had prior, which were healed, by the way. Um, his physical injuries, at least. He just says that it's because he got restored to life. If it was only to do with the fact that he got restored to life in that condition, then really him being restored to life wouldn't have changed shit. Because he still would have been nerfed while he was dead too, because of all the injuries he took. Um, it's just like Goku has no reason to, relate it to the fact that he got resurrected. Rather, just related to the fact that he already got the fuck beaten out of him by Boo. So I like, Additionally, it just seems to be the case that when Purunga does restore you, he just doesn't really do like a full restore on your key level. Um, but yeah, additionally, like if anything, it would be like Gohan would be the one that has to start fresh, and like we have no reason to believe that Purunga is just gonna a-okay him back to like full key because he doesn't again like he doesn't do that with Vegeta. It's like if Vegeta's bar is like let's say 20% by the time he gets resurrected, and it goes to like 40%. Gohan's bar is at 0% because he's literally atomized. He's nothing. Purunga has to make now something from nothing. So if anything, Gohan would only again be like given like a portion of his energy back. It would be even worse for him. Another is the whole like, oh, the world would have been ended if Goku didn't win. People would be like, okay, well, it's stated multiple times, like I show here, um, that if Goku lost, Kid Buu would have beaten everyone, including Gohan. Thus, Kid Buu above Gohan. Well, first off, that assumes that Kid Buu's just gonna go down to Earth and fight them, which he's not always characterized as doing, considering Kid Buu's the same guy that only chose to fight Goku and Vegeta later. On prior to that, he was actually just about to blow up the planet, and he did do that. Right? He didn't expect Gohan. I mean, he didn't expect Goku and Go to leave. He was just straight up trying to blow up the whole fucking planet. So that assumes that he's actually going to engage Gohan and whatnot in a fair fight, right? Which we don't even fucking know that. He could just end up destroying the planet, and Gohan can't breathe in space, so wadi da. Um, Additionally, the stuff about Gohan, which would also apply to Gotenks being nerfed, right? Um, because he didn't get like, you know, he just got resurrected. Same would apply to Gotenks too. Toriyama interview here. This is a fun one because that's what usually most fans use, even though, you know, there are problems with this. So, first off, it's important to note that the stuff in purple isn't even stuff that Toriyama is saying. That's the interviewee, or the interviewer, the asker, I guess. The stuff in the white little, box below, is actually what Toriyama himself says. But let's actually go over the purple first. It says that in several parts of Dragon Ball, the most powerful character is the smallest. This isn't to say, and it brings up Boo as an example, but this isn't the same as saying that the smallest character is, the strongest form of said character. For example, they also bring up Goku as an example. Now, obviously, Kid Goku's weaker than adult Goku, but Goku, as a boy, was the strongest in certain parts of Dragon Ball. He was the strongest before he met Mr. Popo when he killed King Piccolo, for example. He was also the strongest during the first arc of Dragon Ball for quite a while. Just to name some parts of Dragon Ball where he was the strongest, right? Goku largely wasn't matched until he met select people who ended up being major antagonists, like Tao. Um, but the point, yeah, like to just show like Goku, like the interviewer isn't saying that the smallest form of a character is their strongest form. Just saying that relative to other characters, the smallest character is the strongest, right? Like Goku was the smallest character between like other people, like the big fucking animals he'd fight, or like people like Piccolo, but he would still end up being stronger than them. That's the point. In fact, the picture that's actually associated here is Frieza in his first form, who's weaker than all of his forms. However, he was the strongest character for a long time until Piccolo fused with Nail. That's actually when first form Frieza does like officially get surpassed. Before that, he was murking everybody despite being smaller than like almost all of them. If not all of them. Well, he wasn't really smaller than Krillin, but you get the point. Like that's just kind of to articulate just how crazy this shit is, how people misinterpret that. Toriyama then says here I wanted to go against people's expectation that the strong ones always get stronger and bigger. I consciously tried to switch between telling a straightforward story and telling one that was unconventional and contradictory. Now, to a degree, yes, Toriyama is saying that he is trying to sometimes make the smaller transformations bigger. I mean, the stronger transformations smaller. Like he says the strong ones in reference to like the enemies and how they get stronger and bigger, referencing the enemies' transformations. And he, but like the point is that he verbatim says that he switches, quote unquote, switches between telling a story that's straightforward and one that's unconventional. Obviously, the straightforward would be stronger equals bigger, because that's typically what people expect. Unconventional would be the opposite. Stronger equals smaller. Now, the fact that he switches up should tell you alone that obviously it's not some like set in stone principle that the smaller transformations have to be this, the stronger ones. It doesn't, it's not a principle. It's something that Toriyama at times does, but it's not universal. In fact, besides Boo, you can articulate other examples. Yes, Frieza is small, he grows bigger, stronger, and then for his final form, stronger, smaller. But then when he transforms again, or at least powers up, right? He doesn't even index this specifically to transformations. He just indexes this to how the villains grow. He doesn't even say, oh, they transform and get stronger, bigger. So even if you don't consider Frieza's 100% state a transformation, it doesn't really matter because he still got bigger and buffer and more intimidating to become stronger. So it would contradict the idea that like, oh, Toriyama's always trying to make like the smaller one stronger, because clearly he's not. He's flip flopping. Vegeta too. Vegeta's only transformation in the Saiyan arc was Uzaru, which made him a lot stronger and kept him just as fast, but he was obviously way fucking bigger. The point is that even though Toriyama does do this sometimes with Frieza's initial final form and perfect cell, he doesn't always do this. In fact, it's not some like super overwhelmingly likely idea that he'll do this. He's done this again like many times, but it's really really fine for him, and he has done it in the past. If you were to do with Kid Buu, how he would keep him weaker technically than Buuhan while still being, smaller. Because anyway, Boo being small yet strong was more so in reference to Fat Boo, because that's the one they make the most connections to, and the fact that he was still able to mark up people like Goku and Vegeta, who had, you know, a lot of confidence against them. I really don't know why I did this. I mean, this is kind of the same thing, I guess. The same, like, interview people use. Oh, yeah, this is another narrative argument, I think. I don't know why I put this here. Because it kind of just seems to be like how Goku and Vegeta believe they actually have a shot at fighting Boo based on this panel. Well, yeah, it's also just like the fact that Boo is not just that, but it's also the fact that Boo isn't like the other versions of Boo are more so treated as like fusions. So it wouldn't really be like an accurate description of Boo himself. I mean, they're not actual fusions, but it's not like he's being assisted by other people, is one way to put it. So it wouldn't be an accurate description of Boo himself, right? Which is why I think that's why they typically index like Kid Buu being stronger to the Fat Buu, because that's like the only Buu that he was actually being hindered by someone else, right? Rather than assisted or buffed. So that's why they usually like talk about him being above Fat Buu, but not like Super Buu in them, because that's like when he's actually being buffed with the help of other people, like the other Buu and Gohan and them. Goku's number one. Yeah, like well, first off, we have no idea if Vegeta actually knows how strong Gohan and Gotenks are. Mainly because he didn't even know exactly how strong fucking Super Saiyan 3 Goku was. Um, that's why he was what's it called? That's why even here, like earlier, he said like, "Holy shit!" I just realized like this guy's too much for me. He did say that he watched it all, but that doesn't mean that he was able to sense it all. So he doesn't really know the power dynamics and how they compare. Um, so even if he was watching like Gohan and them, was he able to track like their energy and know like exactly how strong they are? Like we have no reason to believe that. Also, I do think this is context to their rivalry. I think that he's saying number one as in he's stronger. I mean, because the whole context is just about how Vegeta is like, oh my god, I've always been trying to surpass you, but I just can't surpass you. So I don't think Vegeta's necessarily saying Goku's number one throughout the whole fucking universe, but rather just in context between the two of them and their rivalry. Now, the Daizenshu has Toriyama mention how he does actually just straight up think Goku's always the strongest in the universe, or at least that he is the strongest in the universe. But this is a general statement. This is not a collective statement over every single period of time. We know this because obviously, for example, during the Cell Saga, um, Goku was weaker than Gohan. So obviously, it's not like a collective every single moment thing. It was not a collective every single moment thing where Goku was stronger for every single point of the story. It's a general statement, referencing often parts of the story. In fact, Goku would be stronger. It's either that you can really either interpret it like that, or interpret it like Goku stronger by the end of the series, which I think is fine, by the way, because that's when Goku has 10 years of training since Buu, and Gohan has likely just gotten way fucking weaker through 10 years of, like, slacking off. I think this is just supporting the whole, like, Vegeta thing that I said earlier. Not only that Vegeta didn't, like, really understand how strong everyone was by this point, but, also the fact that he was clearly talking about, like he says, I think I see at last why I can never beat you. Like he's talking about the rivalry they have. This fellow strongest shit is some bullshit. First off, multiple translators just outright confirm, such as Herms on the right. There's a link to his Twitter thing, by the way, where you can read that. And there's like a Discord translator on the left. It's confirmed multiple times that they don't this thing doesn't necessarily refer to like a pair as in two people, because fellow, the term fellow doesn't necessarily only refer to two people, right? It can be a group thing. If I'm saying like my fellow man, maybe that could be like obviously only one other person, but I could also say my fellow men. And strongest isn't a term that actually like specifies how many people. Like the other strongest could be one other person, it could be two other people. You know, grammatically, there's no way to tell besides context. Like, how many other people is it referring to? That's just like, cleared up by the verbiage, and there's more here if you want like proof of that. Um, Now people usually think, well, first off, it's very consistent that the Z fighters would actually apply to the whole like fellow strongest and like understanding Goku's feelings. Not only because it literally says in another issue of the Daisenshu that Piccolo and Vegeta understand Goku's joy at meeting strong opponents and understanding them. Like they literally say they felt Goku's joy and they understood, which was the context of the Boo thing. The panel that the Boo thing references of Fell's strongest is Goku wanting to fight Boo because he's a strong opponent. And in fact, Oob is literally the fucking incarnation of that idea. Oob only exists because Goku wanted to fight him again. He wanted to fight Boo again. So you're gonna tell me that the context of Goku wanting to fight Boo just because he's like strong ass guy, and the fact that the Daisenshu, the same source, confirms that Goku understands this shit. I mean, Piccolo and Vegeta understand this shit. You're gonna tell me that they're not included in this statement? Especially, excuse me, especially when you have like the panel I sent on the left here, I mean the right, Vegeta's whole like speech here, which also just clearly shows that he understands Goku's constant want to, become stronger to fight stronger and stronger people. He understands that shit. You see this too. Kakura, I know you too well. Piccolo clearly understands too when he flies off with Oob. And then
The whole like wanting to fight the androids is good evidence too. You have Tien and them all being like, I want to know what I can do in battle, man. Which is the same ideology that Goku presents, and the same one that he had against Buu. Even though Buu was evil, he wanted to fight him again, because of the fact that he was strong. And that's why he wanted him to be brought back as a good person. The same kind of ideology that the Z Fighters show in the Android Saga. And by the way, just to like wrap up on this, it's basically I interpret that statement to just be referencing the Z Fighters in general. Not necessarily all of them. I don't know if Gohan understands. We don't know if I mean, he maybe he does. We don't have anything in the manga that contradicts that. Gohan obviously isn't like a battle-hardened warrior, and he just doesn't like to fight. But that also doesn't mean that he doesn't understand Goku's feelings at the same time, especially because he is very connected to Goku as his son, and has seen him in battle a lot. Uh, but it is more so like a general statement. Like the strongest is a general group, right? Doesn't necessarily have to mean like only one other person who's like the top one and two. It could just mean a general group of people, and obviously the Z fighters in general are like the strongest fighters. So it would make less sense, if anything, for this to apply to Boo, because especially with the statements I sent earlier, Boo doesn't give a fuck about anything other than destruction. Yes, he likes to fight, but it's not for the same reason as Goku. Goku likes to fight to better himself and to, just for the sake of fighting. But Boo likes to fight to kill people and destroy and to torment. He doesn't understand Goku's feelings. I think that's really dumb to say. Daima, yeah, there's some Daima statements that just say that he's like stronger than Gohan. Um, but the one on the left, I mean the one on the right, also just proves that Goku most likely got a lot stronger since Daima anyway. Like even though Daima has a pretty short time gap, it's less than a year since Buu. You can still get like quite a bit stronger with like that amount of time in Dragon Ball. I mean, training gaps in Dragon Ball are never consistent. So they really like you get as strong as like the plot really demands. And because Goku already implies anyway that he's gotten a lot stronger since then, since fighting Buu, um, it's pretty consistent that like he could have surpassed that Ultimate Gohan level. For all we know, he's like even stronger than Buuhan by this point. Don't think this. I mean, adult Goku, obviously, not fucking kid Goku. Um, but yeah. Uh, I think this is this whole like strongest enemy bullshit. I don't know what the fuck this is here though. Maybe it's like the last line here. Where it says that his power became the greatest in the universe, from Super Exciting God. I sent this earlier. People use this to also have like Goku top one, but it's not referencing like the whole point is that the context of the statement is when he was fighting Fat Buu. It's when he was like the context of the statement like some the statement's a little weird because like sometimes it's referring to like the Kid Buu portion, like when it says he fought evenly with like the greatest enemy and he kept peace on the earth and the universe. But then you have like the bottom paragraph which says I have to stop Majin Buu's resurrection from happening. Like the statement isn't referring to like one set time period of the story, which is why, especially because the panel itself, I believe that's Goku. No, it's not. No, it's not. Never mind. But the pen, like, I think that the whole last line of like his power became the greatest in the universe. I think that's referencing like the first time he went Super Saiyan 3. Um, because again, like the statement itself doesn't really have any like specific time period it's referring to. Because some of these like are talking about when he fought Boo, and then other times it's talking about like when he wasn't even fucking resurrected yet. So that's why I don't think you can say like, oh, when it says his power became the greatest, they're talking about like when he fought Kid Buu or some bullshit like that. Like no. Strongest enemy. It's stated a lot that Majin Buu, like quote unquote, Majin Buu is the strongest fucking enemy. The problem is, and this what goes back to the Super Buu thing I said earlier. All forms of Buu are the same fucking person. They just are. In fact, the only one that you can really say is different, which is why Dende says the evil version, is between evil and good. The problem is that let me go. Let me see if it's here. Never mind, it's not here. The problem is that evil Buu isn't really like specific. Do I really not have it? Okay, never mind. But the point is that Evil Boo, in the guides even, right? Like, Super Boo is also called Evil Boo. Buuhan is called Evil Boo. Bootex is called Evil Boo. The Super Boo line, I'm talking like from Grey Boo to Super Boo to Buuhan and Bootex, they're all called Evil Boo, which is why Kid Boo is basically the same. The only time Boo actually like splits himself into a separate entity is as Fat Boo. From the gray one, right, the evil one, to Kid Boo. That's just him undergoing a transformation. It's the same body and the same spirit, but he's undergoing a physical and mental transformation. That's different from when he literally split himself into the Fat Boo, which is called the Good Boo. That's why Dende says the Evil Boo is the strongest. But that's just different from like going from evil boo, the gray boo, to the super boo, to kid boo. That's why I think those like that line of boos, they're all the same person. In fact, we never get any mention that like super boo and Buuhan, their souls aren't in fucking hell, because the only soul besides the good boo soul who still is alive would be the evil boo, which would be kid boos who got reincarnated. That's why super boo isn't causing no ruckus in hell or some shit like that. They never mentioned that. um because he just, it doesn't exist. There's no other soul of Boo that exists. Having a completely different mental state doesn't make you a spiritually different person or a completely different entity, you know. In fact, not only that, but Boo, like Majin Buu himself, especially here in the Daisenshu, for example, is kind of described as like one person, like the fat one. Um, in fact, this is actually important. This is actually important. Look at the um look here at the bottom lines here. This evil Boo powered up by successfully absorbing Gotenks, Piccolo, and Gohan. In his battle against Vegito, the good portion of him was cut off, and he transformed into his original form, the pure Boo. They are all the same person. Super Boo and Boo Kid Boo are the same person. In fact, they say, and that in the end he was annihilated by the Genki Dama. Meanwhile, the good Boo went to live with Mr. Satan and whatnot. So even the Daizenshu clearly differentiates only two versions of Boo. The evil one, right, who transforms into his original form, not someone else's original form, his original form, which is pure Boo. And then the good Boo, who, we know he does. We know what he does, right? Like, it's very clear that what I just said earlier is true. Um, Also because like some statements that clearly just wrap up Boo in general as like the same person. Like this El Manga Legendario statement says that like the wizard Babidi came to resurrect Boo, the most powerful demon in history. Obviously, he came to resurrect El Fat Boo because that's the version of Boo that existed at the time. Um, and then it says they just keep fighting like different Boos, right? Like even though the pictures of Kid Boo, part of the passage is referencing Fat Boo, and they call him the most powerful demon in history. Like obviously, Fat Boo, by this logic, wouldn't be the most powerful demon in history because we know Fat Boo's weaker than fucking Kid Boo. Um, and if he's a separate entity from Kid Boo, he wouldn't be the most powerful. But it's fine because Fat Boo and Kid Boo are the same person. Because Fat Boo didn't like split himself into like good and evil yet, anyway. So, because the original Fat Boo is like the one that fights Stabra and them. Then he goes to split his soul into good and evil. Oh yeah, there's also this like interview shit, which is like, but I might also mention this too because this statement is usually used. Why the fuck? This statement is usually used to also prove that like Kid Boo's stronger, because of the line, Goku and Vegeta's families confront a Boo that grows strong with each encounter. Like people interpret this to be that like each encounter of Boo in general is stronger. I only think that it's referring to specific members of the family, the Boos they fight, and this is what I mean. For example, Goku fights Fat Boo, and then he fights Kid Boo. Kid Boo buff Fat Boo, but he doesn't fight Super Boo. Gohan fights Super Boo. No, he fights Fat Boo, and then he fights Super Boo, and then he fights Boo Tanks, and then he doesn't fight a single one after that, right? Yeah.
We know obviously Fat Boo below Super Boo and Super Boo below Butex, right? Gohan himself provided the scaling for that. Um, Gotenks, he fights Fat Boo and then he fights Super Boo, and he doesn't fight any of them, right? You see how like consistent this is? The difference is that I don't think it's referring to like the families like a collective. Like normally like every battle with Boo is against a stronger version. Um, Now people will say, "Oh well, Goku did fight Super Boo." In the anime, he did. In the manga, no. Unless you count, one fucking ki blast, which isn't a fight. A fight's an exchange of blows. So, like one ki blast wouldn't really be a fight. Like by that logic, Gohan fought Buikalo because he, struggled to get out of the little fucking ooze that he got off guarded by. But we know that would contradict this statement anyway because Gohan prior to struggling against Buikalo's little like Buu Piccolo, whatever the fuck's little like glue, he was fighting Buu Tanks, and Buu Tanks is above Buu Piccolo. That's why it's clear like this statement isn't really good evidence either. And it's the same kind of thing here, like both sides keep transforming to become stronger and stronger. But obviously, this isn't like this is more like a general thing. It's not a constant thing. They didn't become stronger than fucking Vegeta when they defused. Boo didn't become stronger when he turned into fucking Buikalo or Boo Piccolo, whatever the fuck you call him. It's not a constant thing, right? It's just like a typical thing. Um, it's not like a set rule. It's just something that generally happens. Even if Kid Buu is weaker than Buuhan, the arc generally still would have had them becoming stronger and stronger, even if there were outliers here and there. For example, Vegito. In fact, honestly, if anything, that makes narrative sense. If Vegito's an outlier on the hero side, it makes sense that Boo's then gonna have an outlier of his own to make up for that. Which goes back to the whole like Goku crushing the Katara narrative, because Boo was on his own. And it's just the same thing. Um, I guess there's this statement people use to like interpret that like Boo was holding back or some shit. Which is like, first off, this could really be talking about potential because power like this is typically sometimes used in context of potential. Like they mention a lot how Gohan has a lot of power, hidden power, shit like that. And we know that Majin Buu reasonably does have a lot of potential. That's part of why Oob has so much potential because he has Majin Buu's essence in him. Um, and it's like clearly that's what I mean Toriyama's talking about. Unless you really think Majin Buu's current power level is either not that much or really big. I mean, it's clear that the audience can tell based off scaling how strong Buu is. Um, it would just suggest, if anything, this just seems to suggest like Boo's potential power rather than you know, we have statements of him going all out anyways, so it's not like Kid Boo's like constantly holding back. There's also this really bullshit thing where like people just think that Goku got stronger for no fucking reason, which is complete headcanon, which is why like nobody really would take it seriously. But in case you're this desperate for like someone is just this desperate for like Kid Buu, we just see multiple times in the series that even after extended periods of time, characters don't get stronger. For example, Goku and Majin Vegeta had a pretty intense fight, yet Trunks, when he senses Goku going Super Saiyan 2 against Fat Buu, which took place after he healed from he took a Senzu Bean after the whole like Vegeta fight, he still only comments on Goku being as strong as Vegeta. So Goku didn't like elevate to a massively greater degree, right? Um, than Vegeta did. Than Vegeta. um he stayed the same. Like their power relationship stayed the fucking exact same. And by the way, Vegeta did fight Fat Buu and, have the fight of his life there. Quite literally had the fight of his life. Yeah, it's not like Vegeta became stronger than Goku at that point, despite the fact that Goku didn't even do any fighting by the time he went to go challenge Buu. So it's like this whole like thing about like Saiyans getting stronger when they fight, which is only really like a thing in like the super anime. In the manga, yeah, they state that, but it's really only in context of like Zenkai boosts. It's never in context of like actual just like mid fucking fight they get stronger. That's really I don't know where people get that from. That's another thing. Like look in the bottom. When Gohan got him fucking violated by Boo Tanks, Dende went to heal him. And Boo just outright says, "You're only as strong as you were back then. You didn't get any fucking stronger." It's just like, it's like, bro, clearly it's not intended in the series for that they just get these massive amps. In the same fucking arc, it's debunked. And there are other examples in other arcs too, like, unless you think Goku's getting like a million fucking times stronger while he's fighting Frieza, despite the fact that he still needs a 50 times boost to end Frieza, right? Despite his power level in the beginning being exactly 50 times weaker than Frieza. Well, not really. A little bit less than 50 times weaker. Like, it's clear these guys just don't get way stronger mid-fight. Oh yeah, the strongest in the universe. There's some strongest in the universe statements too. Uh, Let me see. I don't know what the fuck the one in the. I don't know what. Oh yeah, it's one scan. Yeah, there's two scans. The one on the left says that Boo was the strongest in the universe. Uh, this is again, I think it's more like an at the time thing, and it goes back to the whole like, oh, if Boo won, he would have killed everyone. Because again, everyone at the time was nerfed, and the only real fighters that were available was Goku. I would say Goku and Vegeta, but really only Goku did anything. There's also this one El Manga Legendario statement and the Daizenshuu statement below. It says that Goku and Vegeta were the strongest in the universe when they merged. Now, obviously, this statement has to exclude some people because a certain someone, Buuhan, was clearly fucking stronger than Goku and Vegeta, right? Especially Vegeta. So, I take this to be them being the strongest relative to the available fighters on their side. You know, Boo isn't a fighter on their side because he's the fucking enemy, and Gohan and them aren't on their side right now because they're unable to fight. If anything, they're more so on Boo's side because they're supplying Boo with the power to fight them. Um, so just saying, like, of anyone else in the universe that could possibly challenge Boo right now, Gohan and them not counting because they're already fucking done for. They're already like in Boo's body, even if they're not dead. They're defeated. They're the strongest, right? It's not referring to literally everyone in the universe, not like the general assumption, which would, on the surface, be the most likely assumption. But obviously, they're weaker than Buuhan, so this cannot be the case. That's a problem with using like that statement hyper literally. I don't know why people do that. People do that, by the way. They do actually fucking do that. I don't know why. Um, Anything else I really wanted to... There's something else I wanted to mention here on the slide. Hmm. Um, oh yeah, well, there's this statement too that kind of contextualizes it. Like, two of the top three masters, like clearly Buuhan has to be excluded from that statement. Um, it's just like Buuhan's excluded from that statement, then clearly we have reason to suspect that the others would be excluded too. And the others is really just Gohan and Gotenks and Piccolo, I guess technically too, but more importantly, Gohan and Gotenks because they're inside Boo's body. They can't fight. They're incapacitated. Like I don't know why I don't know why people kind of like stubborn about that. Then there's this statement which is like very fucking obviously contradicted. It either means Goku equal Buuhan, which is just debunked in the manga very fucking easily, and it also just means Goku either that or it means Goku equal to Gohan, which is also debunked with statements in the manga. Unless you want to make a bunch of like unorthodox assumptions that Goku got stronger out of bumfuck nowhere, right? Or that the other statements are contradicted. You can either say that like the numerous other evidence, overwhelming evidence compared to one fucking V jump statement is contradicted, or you can try and like rat your ass off and just say that like Goku got like a million times stronger out of nowhere, or because like he got life from Elder Kai, which by the way, getting life from Elder Kai is never fucking stated to be like a power boost of any sort. It worked for Granola because it was the way Shenron was able to do wish magic. I don't know why the fuck it would apply to Elder Kai, but if you really want to go that route too, right? Like you can make any fucking random ass interpretation of this kind of statement. In fact, we know that Gohan took damage from Buu prior to getting, the Batara to fuse with Goku, right? So it's like, if you want to make any batshit interpretation, you could say, like, you see the scuff marks on him?
What if Gohan got like a million times nerfed just from this damage? Is it likely? No. Is it possible? Yeah. Just as like Goku getting a million fucking times stronger from I don't even know, like beating up Buu as Vegito? Just like that's possible. Um, and it wouldn't even be a contradiction that he gets like all of Gohan's power because he could have just healed Gohan once he like was in his body. Because the statement just says that he absorbs power on par with SS3. It doesn't mean that like Buuhan himself is equal to SS3, right? It's just like uh he could have just absorbed a weakened Gohan who's equal to Goku, and then obviously these panels are just to demonstrate that Buu can heal people. But I think everyone knows that. It's like he could just heal him in his body to access all of Gohan's power. And yeah, I mean, there's also this statement that says that like charge at Buu at your strongest form. This is a bit of a translation thing where like people think it either means people think it either means like Boo is getting like charge at Boo who's in his strongest form, or it's referring to like um charge at good like yeah like because it, like the translation here just outright says charge at Boo in your strongest form, and it's referencing Goku. It's it's like the power of the universe is in Goku. Charge at Boo in your strongest form. So it's not referencing Boo first off, but like some people do think it's referencing Boo. And the only reason they really think that is because it's weird to call Goku the Spirit Bomb a form, because it's not really a form in the same sense as like a Super Saiyan form. But I mean, the kanji itself kind of also translates to like state of being or like, that kind of thing. That's what form really means. So it's really just saying like Goku with the Spirit Bomb, that state of having that power in his hands. Which, by the way, it even says like the power is in Goku. Now, it's not literally inside of Goku. It's not like he pulled a like Android 13 movie, but it's more like a metaphorical representation to say that like that power is within Goku. It's like in his grasp. So it would kind of be like a form of him, a state of being, if anything. And obviously, Spirit Bomb Goku is stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku, so there's not really any contradiction there. Um, and this is just to demonstrate that like this Genki Dama is the strongest Genki Dama. I don't know why I wanted to prove this. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the Genki Dama is like the strongest Genki Dama. Um, I don't remember why this is important. I really don't remember why this is important. Why the fuck was this important? At your strongest form. Maybe it's because like it's stronger than like. Oh, just because like it could also be that they're trying to reference like the Spirit Bomb because they a lot of guides mention how like it's the strongest Spirit Bomb, so it could be just talking about the Spirit Bomb, but and it's referencing like how the Spirit Bomb itself charges at Boo when like Goku throws it. Yeah. Um, Also because like these guys, these V jump people, which is where this thing comes from, they also say like when Goku got the Spirit Bomb, they reference it being absorbing the energy of the entire universe, and they ask if Goku's the strongest. So clearly, they kind of mention the power of the Spirit Bomb in tandem with Goku's own power, even if it's not technically within his own body. Um, so you can't really use that excuse if like the same people who are like writing this type of shit don't really have that kind of mindset. Um, is Go Oh yeah, this is another like scan some people use on like this one website. Is Goku the strongest? Well, first off, this is referencing the power of the Spirit Bomb, right? So it's like I don't really mind if you know, Goku is like the full power Spirit Bomb can be stronger than Gohan, and like there's no contradiction there. Because again, like the Spirit Bomb is stronger than Boo and Goku. It's stronger than both Boo and Goku. The only reason why Boo was able to push it back is because Goku himself was too weak. The only thing that changed that made Boo lose was that Goku got the energy to push it further. But the energy itself was more than enough to eviscerate every atom in fucking Boo's body. So yeah. But this statement is clearly referencing like The spirit bomb. That's why it says absorbing of the power of the universe. Uh, and like not to mention like the whole Gohan nerve thing from before, but that doesn't even matter in this case. Because again, it's just referring to the spirit bomb itself being the strongest, which is fine. Uh, oh yeah, more like strongest Majin bullshit. This is also where you see like Majin Buu evil. Like literally, they call the Gray Buu the same thing as the Kid Buu. In fact, those are two excerpts, right? Like they have like both versions of like the evil Buu fighting good Buu, and they just call them the same fucking thing. They call them the same fucking thing. Like they reference him the same way. It's the same person. It just transforms. So strongest Majin doesn't really matter. At best, it puts him above Dabra and like the original Fat Buu, which is stuff we know already. It's not contradicted at all. Um. Oh yeah, this is whole like universe's strongest Buu. This one's a little weird in like the wording, but this could, depending on the way you, it's either just saying he's the strongest in the universe, or just saying that like he is actually like the strongest Buu in the universe. But obviously, you know, that wouldn't reference versions of Buu that either like even if you wanted to say that like Buuhan and Super Buu were like different people, they're dead now. They don't exist anymore. This is again just referencing to that fat good Buu. It's just saying that of the two Boos that exist, this is the strongest. The other one, he doesn't matter. And furthermore, right? I mean, in the strongest Boo, okay, this is more direct, right? But it's different from saying like the strongest Boo in history. It's different because, by the way, like these guys, this was all the way back in like the fucking 90s. These guys don't think like us. When they say the strongest Boo, they're not gonna like maybe we will think obviously of all the fucking forms. But no, when they're narrating these non-power scalers back in the fucking 90s and they're narrating specifically like within the context to the story where there's only two boos that currently exist right now. One of them's fucking pictured on the page. That's why I don't interpret this to be like strongest boo in history or something like that, which again wouldn't matter anyway because there's only two actual boos, right? One of the boos come in different forms, but he's only one person still. But it doesn't even say like strongest boo in history, just as the strongest boo. I think people are quick to like call that dumb way of looking at it because they think of like the term boo or strongest boo in the power scaling way that we think of it. But you just got to keep in mind that that's not likely how these guys are going to be interpreting it. We have no reason to believe that these guys are going to have the same fucking mindset as us. There's also this one. I couldn't get like the raw for this, and I don't really fucking care to. But it basically says like the ultimate boo, but the kanji's a little weird and it can just translate to like many things. It could also translate to the final boo or the last boo, which still makes just as much sense because obviously it was the last form of boo they fought till Boo himself was just completely eviscerated. Um, so it doesn't necessarily need to mean like ultimate and like the strongest, right? It could just mean like the final boo that they fight. Like yeah, because just recapping the volumes of the story. Uh, Oh yeah, this is from Dragon Ball Forever. It states that Goku fought powered up Majin Buu. People use this to argue that Buu is stronger than Super Buu and that he actually powered up. Um, though I interpret this as being like referencing Buu and Goku powering up, ready for battle. You see that the page itself, in fact, do I? No, I don't. But you see the panel on the far right. The panel right after that, actually no, right before that, literally the panel right before that is Goku powering up to Super Saiyan 3. Like you see him like still powering up in that panel, but the panel right before that has the exact same image as the one on the far left with like Goku like powering up and clutching his fists. Um so I think it's like to be fair, it's not directly stated that this still like monkey bullshit that Kid Buu is doing is him powering up, but it's pretty likely that it is, or at least getting ready in some way. Um, but yeah, I could just be referring to that. It doesn't really need to be like explicitly stated that he's powering up here anyway. It's just something that has basis if we already know that this whole like monkey shit that he does, fucking ooga booga, is his way of like getting prepped for a fight. Typically, one thing in getting prepped for a fight is that you would be making sure you're at full power, or at least the desired power that you want to go fight someone at. But for Kid Buu, that would be full fucking power anyway. Beyond the limit, I saw this on this one website too. I don't know why the fuck this is used as evidence. Like, I'm assuming they interpret it as being like beyond like what's already demonstrated in the series, which is like if you really go off like the face value of that, you would be putting these guys above like fucking Vegito, which is obviously just retarded. Especially because Vegito, even as we saw him, is just stated to be top one of the whole fucking manga. I just interpret this to mean how like Goku and these guys, these fighters are just well, first off, this is just hype language. Like it's not really something you should be taking seriously. But even if you want to be all literal about it, then I can be literal about that too. I just think it's referencing how these guys break their limits. Super Saiyan 3 and this power level of Super Saiyan 3 and Buu in of itself is a limit breaker. This goes beyond the traditional limits of both normal fighters and even Goku's prior limits as a Saiyan. So that can even be like what it's referencing, how like Goku's breaking his limits by going Super Saiyan 3. You know, I mean he already broke his limits going Super Saiyan. Now he's doing even more than that by going two fucking levels above Super Saiyan. Oh yeah, the most troublesome boo statement was what this one is. Most difficult, I guess. This is just dumb. If you just look at the definition of like difficult or troublesome, which is actually what this translates to, um, it just usually references like the personality of the person and like how like reasonable they are. Um, Even though Buuhan is stronger than Buu, this is outweighed of the fact that Buuhan does stall in his fights and gave Goku multiple opportunities that Kid Buu just doesn't do. In fact, they make it very narratively important that Kid Buu just annihilates instantly. Kid Buu would not ask them to fuse, which is literally what saved their ass against Buuhan. So even if Buuhan is stronger, he can be less troublesome or difficult with the fact that Kid Buu's ferocity outweighs that. Because Kid Buu wasn't weak enough to the point that they could just fucking beat his ass anyway. He was still very strong. He wasn't like much stronger than them like Buuhan is. But again, that's outweighed by the fact that Buuhan and Super Buu let these guys power up 24/7. Like it was bad. Moving on, this is the God key argument, some bullshit. Cause like first off, I interpret this to just refer to like again, like it's referring to evil Buu and good Buu. Very clearly, I think this split is referencing the split where Boo had smoke coming out of his head and literally manifested a whole different Boo from that. People think it's talking about like when Kid Boo spat out Fat Boo, but that wouldn't make sense because at that point Fat Boo was already separated from him. In fact, it would more so mean that the separation happened against Super Boo because he was Super Boo at this time, which is why it makes even less sense. Um, because the only actual separation happened in Super Boo, right? Then like Kid Buu spat Fat Buu out because Fat Buu was like fighting inside of his body, but he wasn't actually like, you know, literally part of his essence at that point. That's why he was pure at that point. He was still pure Buu. It's just that the Fat Buu was like causing a ruckus inside of his body or some shit. I don't know why people misread that. Um, the reason why I think Kid Buu's pictured here is the same reason why they picture like Final Form Frieza or First Form Frieza or like Perfect Cell traditionally, because that's his last well-known form. Yeah, even if Super Boo and Kid Buu are the same person, most people associate more so Boo with the kid version. And that's also his last version, before he died. So I think that's why they picture that version here. Because they can't picture every you think they're gonna fucking draw every single version of Boo? That's like saying that like if they draw Cell, that they should draw every single fucking face. Like the face he has imperfect, semi perfect, but no. They're gonna draw one face, the one that's either most recognizable or the last one he had before his death, the most recent one he had. Or maybe both. Um, but like even if Boo had God Key, it is just not implied that he could have actually fucking used it at all, right? Like we have no reason to believe that he was using God Key, so it's basically fucking useless. And in fact, it wouldn't even be likely because they can't sense God Key. So think about it. If Goku was like noticing that Boo was fighting well beyond what his like normal power level would suggest, because they can sense his energy by the which is another thing. Like God Key just completely makes your energy undetectable. Yet they could sense his fucking energy. That's dumb. But even if it worked like some kind of thing where it's like only portion of your mortal energy can be sensed and then the rest is God Key that can't be sensed, which that's not how it works, but even if it was,
Goku would still be able to notice, right? Like, why the fuck is this guy so much stronger than I can sense from him? And they would probably mention that because, again, narratively, they do mention this shit very fucking often, especially to each other, right? It'd probably be something he'd want to tell to Vegeta, who's trying to stall for him. But yes, it's just like very clear this God Key point is like irrelevant. And yeah, like, oh yeah, it's a whole like right mindedness bullshit. Yeah, I mean, is Pure Boo more in the right mind because he's more like pure? Maybe. I don't even want to get into semantics of that because it doesn't really sound right. But it's like, even then, some buffs can outweigh the nerfs. Like, that's like saying Super Saiyan isn't a buff because you're not really in your right mind. No, it clearly fucking is because of the power boost that it gives you just outweighs the, the right mindedness nerf, I guess, if that even really is like a power level nerf. Um, I think that Boo having all those people in him, pause, outweighed the nerf of not being able to think straight, even though, if anything, he thinks better. Like, he's not as, like, true to himself, but I don't know, like, if anything, upping your mentality, even if it's not through, like, the natural means, I don't know. This statement doesn't really matter anyway, because of what I just said, like, using the Super Saiyan example, but we might as well move on to the anime because I think the anime. I'm not gonna really touch on this much because it's been so fucking long since I started this. But yeah, I think Kid Buu wins. Statements from many sources. I don't think like I don't think I really need to get into that Son Goku Densetsu. I think it's called the guidebook on the left here. In fact, they literally changed the line from like most dangerous to the most dangerous and powerful Buu. Like, very clear what the anime staff were fucking doing here. And this is just proof that Goku does consider like that Boo's the same person. He says, I should have finished you off when I was Vegito. He only fought Buuhan as Vegito, but he considers Buuhan and Kid Buu the same person, so he says you. He doesn't say the other Buu. He doesn't say like Buuhan or Super Buu or like the other Buu or anything. He just says you. So yeah, overall that's my conclusion on this debate. I think for a 20-year long debate, there's quite a lot of evidence to go through, so I understand like why, but it's kind of like low key. People just make up some bullshit in the manga. The manga itself just tells you like Goku and Buu are equal, Kid Buu are equal, and then he's just weaker than like Buuhan and them. People just assume either Goku got stronger out of nowhere or that Kid Buu held back, both of which are unprovable. Um, the former of which is just like pretty narratively untrue, and then the latter of which is just outright stated to be false and also just like based on like his actions doesn't really make sense. That's all for today, though. I hope you enjoyed my deep dive analysis. If you have any like corrections or suggestions you want to make to the arguments I made, please comment them down below. I'd love to hear them. See you.